string of brutal crimes rocks Atlanta's hottest social scene. The adult entertainment industry was booming. Men had a lot of cash going into these clubs. He was shot execution style.
I was shocked. We actually was just so scared.
Detectives search for a killer in a world of glamour, sex, and secrets. There were huge clubs. There were mega celebrities. The club owners, the bouncers, the security, they're not real excited to have police combing through their establishment. And the pressure is on as the crime spree continues. There's been another shooting, the third male.
The Orlando Police Department contacted our agency concerning a similar incident that they were investigating.
Could a stark confession reveal the truth?
This was a girl who just lays it all out. She didn't sugarcoat it.
He made all these promises, sold her this huge pipe dream. Is there more to this tale than meets the eye?
She was under the control, to some extent, of him.
This is one cold-blooded female that just does what she wants to do. I mean, I don't know if I'd ever seen anything like that.
August 15th, 2002, Atlanta, Georgia, the height of the city's club scene.
2002 was a time in Atlanta when the nightlife scene was an international destination for partying. Like, there were huge clubs. It was a very wild time.
2002 Atlanta was lit. It was the place to be. Anytime celebrities come in town, you know, they call us, you know, to come party. Everybody who was on our scene was real players, real heavy hitters.
30-year-old Atlanta resident and staple on the club scene, Carlita Knox, better known as Smokey, is getting ready for a night out with her brother, Ray.
I talked to Ray about 8:30. He told me to come on over there and, you know, we'll go hang out. So I was like, okay, cool. He said he was cooking, he was grilling some steaks with some friends. So my friend, me and Sam, wanted to go over there.
Her brother, Ray, was at the apartment partying with his friend, Doc. Just 30 minutes later, Carlita receives another phone call.
I got a call from G, one of Doc's friends. And G was like, hey, you know, I was on the phone with Doc, and I heard gunshots. And something like he couldn't breathe or something like that. He said he did hear some female voices in the back saying, get the money, get the money. I kind of brushed it off, but I said, let me call him. So I kept calling Doc, no answer. I'm like, what the hell? It's strange. So I kept trying to call Ray.
She's not picking up. She's getting panicky. She's like, let's go over to his place.
Carlita and her friend Sam head over to Ray's apartment.
The whole ride over there is just such a dreary, dreadful feeling. Me and Sam got out the car and we walked up. And when we got to Ray's door, it was cracked a little bit. So Sam peeped in. He was like, it's not good. It's not good. I'm like, what? What happened? What happened? He was like, they're dead. They're dead. I said, oh my God. So I end up calling 911.
First responders with the DeKalb County Police Department arrive on the scene.
Both victims were deceased in the living room, one close to the couch, the other on the floor. I started documenting the crime scene as I saw it. They secured the crime scene and then notified the DeKalb County Police Major Felony Unit to respond.
Outside the apartment, Carlita is in shock.
Finding my brother dead, that changed my life forever. Everything was rushing through my head. Everything was rushing through my head. Who, what, when, why? I just broke down crying. We couldn't wrap our minds around it.
Born in 1968, Raymond Goodwin was raised by his mother in Birmingham, Alabama.
She was a single mom, raising 5 kids by herself. So it wasn't, all roses, but she did the best she could.
Ray was the middle child, and he was always helping people. Always, I called him Captain because he was always reaching out and helping people.
Growing up, Ray was just always active into the high school band and different stuff like that. He started working at 16 years old. I remember he worked at McDonald's in high school.
Ray was close with all of his siblings, but especially with his sister, Carlita.
My mom and Ray, they were best friends. They were always together. Them two, they were the youngest, so they had a special kind of relationship.
By the late 90s, Ray and most of his siblings had migrated to Atlanta. There, he stayed close with his family.
Ray was like the legendary uncle. He was the house to go to. He's gonna rent us 10, 15 games, movies, we got board games. He's gonna cook the whole weekend. It was the place to be as a kid.
He was always the comedian, always kept people laughing. He was full of life.
After a successful stint as a car salesman, at age 31, Ray changed lanes to pursue a lifelong dream.
Photography was Ray's passion. He was always into that.
He would go into like the Walmarts and he would have these booths set up to do his photography. He was very good at it.
But Ray had bigger dreams than taking pictures in department stores. He wanted to break into the booming Atlanta entertainment scene, something by the late 90s Carlita had already done.
We were in the adult entertainment industry. I started dancing on a regular basis then, and I just became great at what I was doing.
She would hook Ray up with other dancers who needed to make like flyers or portfolios. In order to market themselves, Ray would take their pictures for them.
He created a whole photography company. Within like a few months' time, just catapulted to another level.
Ray found his niche, working with dancers at Atlanta's multitude of high-end clubs.
He did a lot of my photography. He made my portfolios. He made portfolios for all of my girls.
Ray developed a huge network of friends in the city, including 35-year-old Claudel Christmas, a.k.a. Doc.
Doc was very suave. He was a cool guy. He called himself the doctor. I met him at the club through a mutual friend. He liked to go to the casinos. He just liked to, party just like everyone else back then. He became one of my best friends as well.
Doc was a very giving person, very great person, great energy. Everyone knew him, loved him. Our whole family and friend network was very tight.
Ray found success, status, and popularity in Atlanta. When he met Akasha Turner in 2001, he also found love.
I met him at a dance club. He just came up to me laughing. Raymond, even amidst that type of environment, he stood out differently. He was very religious. He was very spiritual. I had a friend, like a best friend.
They had been together for a couple of years. She loved him. They were in love.
By the summer of 2002, Ray was at the peak of success in a city where the sky was the limit. But on August 15th, his rise to the top is cut short. Detectives with the DeKalb County Police Department enter Ray's apartment, where they find the bodies of 34-year-old Ray Goodwin and 35-year-old Doc Christmas.
We looked for any damage to the door, which there was none. We looked for any broken windows, and there was no damage indicating any type of forced entry. There was none. There was no immediate signs of any type of struggle. Nobody had any other injuries besides the gunshot wounds. Doc received one gunshot wound to the head. Ray received a gunshot wound to the head, along with other gunshot wounds to his torso.
When asked why anyone would want to hurt her brother, Carlita says she believes burglary may have been the motive.
He kept very expensive photography equipment. Both of these victims, Doc and Ray, were known to carry a large amount of cash, especially being around the entertainment industry. They would go to the clubs with wads of cash and just, spend all kinds of crazy money.
My brother, he bought major equipment. I mean, he had so much stuff. Doc, he was a little flashy too, and I thought they probably was like, shoot, we're gonna rob him too.
Carlita also tells investigators of the bizarre call between Doc and her friend G that led her and Sam to the apartment in the first place.
While Doc was speaking with this individual, gunshots rang out.
He actually heard a female voice say, "Get the money, get the money."
Investigators wonder if Ray and Doc fell victim to Atlanta's growing crime wave.
During this time frame, the adult entertainment industry was booming. People would want to rob the men knowing they had a lot of cash going into these clubs. They started to have a lot more robberies within our city, and they were being committed by females.
Coming up, a pair of suspects emerge.
Whoever this voice was on the phone saying, "Get the money," was somebody they knew.
And the discovery of another body strikes fear in this close-knit community.
He suffered multiple gunshot wounds.
He actually was just so scared and everything. What, a serial killer out here?
DeKalb County detectives are investigating the murders of 34-year-old Ray Goodwin and his friend, 35-year-old Claudel Doc Christmas.
Raymond had been shot 5 or 6 times. Doc had been shot 1 time in the head.
Robbery could have been a motive. Ray and his business had a lot of very, very expensive high-end photography equipment, carried a lot of cash, and the money from their wallets was missing.
Inside Ray's apartment, detectives search for clues.
In this particular case, it appears that they were having a party, getting ready to go out for the evening. There were drink glasses, and they were about to cook out. So it appeared initially, at first glance, that the victims knew and let the killers in willingly.
There was no tables turned over. There was no damage to any of the other property inside. I would have to say the incident appeared to have been almost by surprise.
Doc was shot execution style in the head. That tells us that he was probably shot first. It appeared that once Ray saw what happened, he tried to flee, and they just unloaded on Ray. And that's why Ray has a lot more gunshot wounds than Doc had. Ray and Doc were obviously very comfortable with the people that were in the house with them because they were drinking. Whoever this voice was on the phone saying, "Get the money," was somebody they knew. Based on the information they heard about this phone call, detectives thought we had at least 2 perpetrators.
They were invited in, and that means you can focus your attention on people who might have had access to the apartment.
2 cell phones were recovered from the crime scene, one being Doc's and the other being Ray's. I sent out subpoenas for the phone carriers to find out who they had been communicating with.
Investigators discover one more potentially important clue.
There were were 7 bullets fired. All of the shell casings located were .32 caliber bullets.
32 calibers, it's a very small gun. And, you know, with a small gun, who carries small guns? Typically females. Because we have a female voice say, get the money, get the money. The suspect in this case is most likely a female.
Detectives head back outside where Ray's sister Carlita is waiting. She says she's just gotten off the phone with Ray's girlfriend.
Carlita found out that on this particular day, 2 individuals might have been at the apartment partying with these guys.
He had people around, like per usual. He naturally does, tells me what he's doing, who he's with. He said the names of who he was with. It was nicknames.
Ray and Doc were hanging out with 2 dancers from the area, and she identified them as Peaches and Snow.
Carlita tells them she thinks she met Peaches and Snow a few weeks earlier.
A light bulb immediately went off. Ding! It's gotta be them girls. It's gotta be them girls. I didn't know Peaches and Snow. I didn't know their names at the time. But 3 weeks before this incident had happened, I had a yacht party at Lake Lanier. My brother, we were supposed to have a photo shoot there. So he set up everything for the girls and invited them to the photo shoot. These girls were dancers at, you know, less popular clubs. One stood out to me. She was tall. She was like 5'7" or 5'9" or something like that. When I first met them, I got a bad vibe from her. I said, man, Ray, I don't like these girls. I mean, something came over me immediately, and I was just like, no, sir, not them.
Investigators turn to the only other detail they know about Peaches and Snow.
Detectives went to some of the strip clubs in the Atlanta area.
Dealing with the clubs was difficult. You know, you couldn't even get past the door. The club owners, the bouncers, the security, they're not real excited to have police, you know, combing through their establishment.
2 days after the murders on August 17th, 2002, DeKalb County detectives are called to the scene of another homicide.
There's been another shooting, and it's just across town. The 3rd male murdered.
At the crime scene, detectives find 29-year-old Demetrius Michi Twitty dead on his living room floor.
It appeared that he had suffered multiple gunshot wounds, including to the head, back, abdomen area, and that they were in intermediate range, probably 5 to 6 feet.
It doesn't take long for detectives to notice eerie similarities between the 2 crime scenes.
These murders, they're in close proximity, both occurring in the same county.
You got a deceased guy in his apartment. He too has been executed. Neither one of them has a forced entry.
And then while going over the scene, they found the same .32 caliber shell casing that they did on the scene with Ray and Doc.
The fact that the same caliber, which was an unusual caliber, was used, it would not be far from saying that the same individual committed all 3 murders.
Detectives on the scene step outside where they find Michi's friend, Marchetti Townsend.
He said Michi didn't show up for work that day, and he was concerned.
Michi and Mr. Townsend worked together as barbers. Mr. Townsend had tried to reach his friend several times by phone. He went to the apartment. At that point, he found Michi dead.
Distraught, Marchetti explains that Michi was a beloved figure in their tight social circle.
Michi was very popular as being a master barber, and he cut a lot of people's hair. He was high in demand. People would pay in cash, so we always had a lot of money on him.
But there is no cash to be found in Michi's apartment. And that's not the only thing that's missing.
Michi had been renting a gold Nissan Maxima. That car was missing from the scene.
As detectives search for the gold Nissan, news of Michi's death reaches his friends.
I knew Michi. You know, we always just on the same scene. Ray knew Michi as well. We heard he got killed. So we like, what the hell? You know, what the heck is going on? I was shocked. I could not believe it.
Still reeling from her brother's murder, Carlita fears the worst.
We actually was just so scared. You know what I mean? We got a serial killer out here.
Coming up, investigators enlist help to stop a killer.
Nobody want to talk to the police, so that's where I came in at.
And they make an important discovery.
2 handguns were located in the toilet tank. It was the same caliber handgun used at both crime scenes.
After a string of 3 murders, DeKalb County detectives are urgently trying to track down their only possible suspects, 2 dancers named Peaches and Snow.
I'm asking the police, hey, you know, you guys hear anything? You guys hear anything? Nope. A week went by. They was like, man, we don't have any leads. We don't have anything yet.
Unwilling to let the murders go unsolved, Carlita takes matters into her own hands.
I wasn't just gonna sit there and, you know, be scared. Nobody want to talk to the police, so that's where I came in at.
Carlita hits the streets, trying to uncover anything she can on the 2 dancers who were allegedly at her brother's apartment the night of the first murders.
I reached out to everybody. I went to about 3-4 strip clubs. They're not supposed to let you do this, but because of my status, they allowed me to go and look at the permit books.
Because she was a dancer and she wasn't law enforcement, they let Carlita sift through these permit books. It'll tell your name, your age, you know, all the basic information. And she was able to identify Peaches.
I came across this one permit of Falicia Blakely, and her height and weight stood out. She was tall and skinny. She was like 5-something and 114 pounds. I said, you know what, that looked like her. I called the detective, and I told him what I had found, and he was like, okay, meet me, and I'll run everything.
Falicia Blakely was born in 1983 to a single mother in Jacksonville, Florida.
Falicia had an absent father. She was bounced between her mother and her grandmother in Jacksonville her whole childhood.
In 1998, at the age of 15, Falicia moved with her mother to Atlanta.
Her mother had been transferred to Atlanta with some kind of warehouse job.
Felicia's already tense relationship with her mother became even more difficult after the move.
She had a lot of anger. Her relationship with her mom was so estranged, she had to find a way to support herself. So she got a fake permit or ID to make herself look older, and she began dancing in these clubs. It was very lucrative for her.
Falicia left home at age 17. Young and beautiful, she made enough money dancing to get by.
After Falicia was dancing in these clubs, she was dating a guy, she got pregnant, but she didn't want to have anything to do with the guy. So she was just going to raise the baby on her own, but she couldn't dance as she got bigger in the pregnancy. So there was one particular night that she was dancing and she was showing quite a bit, and she wasn't making very much money. And a guy in the audience approached her. Falicia described him as good looking, charismatic. He approached her and gave her a big wad of cash.
At the end of the night, the man introduced himself as Mike Berry.
Made her feel like she was on top of the world and she can have everything. There was no guidance in her life. You know, you're going to latch on to the first person that shows you any type of affection and love, or stability.
Quickly, the two began dating, and Mike offered Falicia dreams of a better life.
This was everything she probably ever wanted, was what she saw in Mike Berry. He was giving her love, spending time with her, buying her things for coats and cars, and offering to, like, take the role of being this baby's father.
However, Felicia's relationship with Mike didn't turn out as she hoped.
When you have a master manipulator, they know who to target. They're not going to target the flamboyant chick in the club. You know, they're going to target the one that they think that's very insecure.
He was much older than her. He made all these promises to her. We're going to get out of Atlanta. We're going to have a better life. He just sold her this huge pipe dream, and Falicia bought into it.
But in the end, none of that happened.
Felicia's transient. She has no real known address. She would drop the baby off at daycare and then just not pick the baby up. And so Felicia's mom got the baby. Falicia tried to fight her on that, but the mom ended up getting the custody. And Falicia went back to dancing in these clubs.
Now, in August of 2002, Felicia's name is at the center of a triple homicide investigation.
You're dealing with a suspect who dances at different clubs in different areas of the city. So trying to hunt and find her location, you're losing a lot of time.
Meanwhile, just a few miles away, inside the Atlanta city limits, a call comes in to 911.
On August 25th, the City of Atlanta police were contacted regarding some suspicious individuals in the lobby of a Mrs. Winter's restaurant.
There had been a series of robberies, armed robberies, at a fast food fried chicken restaurant all over the Atlanta area, and the perpetrators were female. As such, the word got out among the various franchises of the restaurant: be on the lookout for women who are acting suspicious.
The manager reports there are 3 women in the dining room who match the description of the suspects at large.
When Atlanta police get there, the females are seen running into the bathroom. Atlanta police order the females out of the bathroom.
The women are placed in the back of a squad car and hand over the keys to the vehicle they arrived in.
City of Atlanta ran the tag on the gold Nissan Maxima that was in the parking lot that the females arrived in. When they did that, they learned that it had been taken in a homicide in DeKalb County, which was Michi's homicide.
In Michi's crime scene, the one thing that was taken was a car that Michi had rented. It was a gold Nissan.
They also discover the women had attempted to ditch something in the restaurant bathroom.
2 handguns were located in the toilet tank within the bathroom. One of them was a .32 caliber automatic handgun. It was the same caliber handgun used at both homicides.
Outside, officers ask the women for identification.
The women that were arrested by the City of Atlanta police and Mrs. Winters were Amisha Irvin and Falicia Blakely.
Coming up, detectives learn of another potential victim.
The Orlando Police Department contacted our agency concerning a similar incident that they were investigating.
Detectives think she's done more murder than we've discovered.
It's been 10 days since the murders of Raymond Goodwin, Doc Christmas, and Michi Twitty. And Atlanta authorities have just arrested their suspects, 18-year-old Falicia Blakely and 20-year-old Amisha Irvin.
We've been on the hunt for Falicia Blakely, and here we have Falicia in Michi's vehicle with a .32 caliber handgun.
Detectives begin their interviews with 18-year-old Falicia while taking note of her unusual necklace.
It was a chain with a padlock on it. It was odd.
When detectives got to interview Falicia, she admitted, without too much trouble, that they killed Michi and Ray and Doc.
She knew we had the gun, we had the car. I mean, how do you lie about that?
With Miss Blakely, her statement was remarkably candid. This was a girl who is being charged with 3 different murders and just lays it all out. She didn't sugarcoat it.
Falicia tells them that she met Ray through her friend and fellow dancer Amisha, also known as Snow.
Amisha knew Ray as a photographer. He had given her his business card to have photos taken.
She says the women had socialized with Ray a few times, and on August 15th, she and Amisha went to Ray's house to party before heading out to the clubs. While she'd hung out with Ray before, this day was different.
Falicia believed that Ray possibly had money, and that's why she was there, to actually rob him.
Desperate for money, Falicia says she decided to make her move.
When Falicia went to hang out with Doc and Ray this particular day, she had her gun with her.
Falicia confesses to investigators she purchased the gun illegally.
Doc is on his own phone with somebody. She walks up behind Doc. He turns just in enough time to see her with the gun. She pulls the trigger. Ray tries to leave, and she shoots him.
Falicia disclosed that Ray had withdrew about $1,000 that day. So about $1,000 was taken from Ray.
As had been the plan all along, Falicia says she and Amisha hit the clubs.
Shortly after the robbery of Ray and Doc, they had gone partying in Buckhead.
Falicia tells investigators while riding high from success, the women spotted another potential victim.
They had met Michi while out partying, and Falicia believed he had money.
Michi used to come to the club all the time. He was a flashy guy. He loved big bulky jewelry, and he was a flashy guy. So I think that's why they targeted him.
Michi wants to party with these pretty girls and invites them back to his house. They're partying, hanging out. I believe he dozes off and wakes up to the gun.
Falicia shot him several times. Got $650 in cash, and they left in his car.
Falicia confesses to investigators that over the next few days, she and Amisha continued their crime spree, hitting numerous fast food restaurants.
They start getting thirsty, to do more robberies because these men were just easy to lure in. They're at these clubs, they're spending money, they're trying to have a good time, and they meet these pretty ladies. And so that's what happened with Michi.
Investigators are taken aback by Felicia's matter-of-fact confession.
This is one cold-blooded female that just does what she needs to do and does what she wants to do. I mean, I don't know if I'd ever seen anything like that.
Next, detectives turn their attention to 21-year-old Amisha Irvin, a.k.a. Snow.
Her statement matched up pretty well She goes into some details about how they took some money and how Falicia did all the shooting.
When Falicia starts firing during these murders, Amisha hits the ground. And then Falicia kept screaming, get the money, you know, like, let's get out of here. She helped take the money.
After both confessions, Falicia and Amisha are charged with 3 counts of malice murder, armed robbery, felony murder, and theft by taking.
Once I got the news, I was like, oh my God, thank you, Lord Jesus. And I immediately felt a little bit more safe because someone was in custody. Ray didn't deserve that. He did not deserve that at all. Doc didn't deserve it either. They both were good guys.
As prosecutors prepare for trial and news of Felicia's arrest hits the media, DeKalb County investigators get an unexpected call from detectives in Florida.
After the arrest of Falicia and Amisha, the Orlando Police Department contacted our agency concerning a similar incident that they were investigating in their jurisdiction.
4 months before their arrests, on the night of April 17th, 2002, an Orlando man invited a young woman back to his motel room to party. Instead, he was attacked.
That individual was robbed and shot in the head. However, he was still alive, and the caliber of weapon used was a .32 caliber automatic handgun. According to the victim in the city of Orlando, the female was described as a black female. He mentioned that she was wearing a necklace with a padlock on it. Falicia Blakely, when she was arrested, she also had a necklace with a padlock on it.
Did Falicia commit this attempted murder across state lines? And if so, how much blood is on her hands?
Knowing that Falicia had attempted to kill somebody before these 3 victims, it raised suspicion for detectives that possibly she's done more murder than we've discovered.
Coming up, a courtroom revelation no one sees coming.
The necklace represented that she was his property.
Is Falicia a cold-blooded killer, or is someone manipulating her every move?
He knew how to pick his prey.
After a killing spree that left 3 dead in less than 24 hours, Falicia Blakely and her accomplice Amisha Irvin are in jail awaiting trial.
At the initial interview, even though Falicia was being truthful, they just still had this sense that maybe there was more information that she wasn't telling, but they just couldn't figure out exactly what that piece was. So Falicia was interviewed later after her arrest.
During her second interview, Falicia makes a stunning allegation.
Falicia explained Mike Berry was her pimp. She was forced to do it due to Mike Berry. And that he was the one that really wanted the money and put her and Amisha up to these crimes. Mike Berry knew how to pick his prey. He knew exactly who his target would be. And he selected his girls carefully. Falicia had a necklace with a padlock on it. And she had disclosed that the only person that had the key to that padlock was Mike.
The necklace represented that she was his property.
According to Falicia, Mike believed the successful photographer would have cash on hand, and he ordered Falicia to rob Ray.
According to her, Mike Berry had been ordering her to collect more and more money, and that there was all of this pressure.
Mike enlisted Amisha to be her accomplice. When she and Amisha arrived at Ray's that afternoon to party, Falicia says she had a hard time building up enough nerve to pull out the gun. But Mike wasn't letting it go.
Falicia says he keeps calling her while she's there and saying, "When are you gonna do this?" Finally, she calls him back, leaves the phone, sitting on the couch, so he could hear what's happening.
He was on the line and he heard the whole murder.
Falicia says once the deed was done, Mike insisted she kill again. And within hours, Michi was also dead.
Her defense attorney attempts to use Mike, her pimp, I guess, at some extent, as being the catalyst to this. They also went and interviewed Mike, and he didn't admit to anything. There's really no evidence on our end involving Mike.
I think if Amisha had come forward and corroborated some of Felicia's information, detectives could have built a case on Mike, but that just wasn't the case.
Regardless, the 20-year-old does not deny that she was the one to take the lives of 3 men.
She was really clear about her own level of responsibility, even though she was under the control, to some extent, of him.
We started out seeking the death penalty, absolutely. At the time, you could not get a life without parole sentence unless, in fact, you were seeking the death penalty.
In 2004, Falicia accepts a plea deal.
Falicia and her lawyers made the decision for her to plead guilty and avoid that trial and serve life in prison rather than be considered for the death penalty.
Falicia is spared the death penalty. Instead, she receives 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole.
I was like, thank you, God. There is a God. Thank you so much, Lord, that this girl is off the street and she can no longer hurt anybody else.
Amisha also pleads guilty. She receives concurrent life sentences with the possibility of parole.
The Florida case was never pursued just because the court system believed that Falicia was never going to be out of prison for these 3 murders.
For those who lost loved ones during Felicia's 24 hours of bloodshed, her claims at sentencing bring mixed emotions.
Falicia could have made different choices. You did what you did because that was the person you are on the inside.
It doesn't make me feel better about what happened, you know. It's a very, very, very small amount of relief. I miss him. I miss him a lot.
Gruesome discovery in a local junkyard upends a small New Mexico town.
The face was all skeleton. The individual in the toolbox had been deceased for a while. The pathologist was able to retrieve a small business card inside his shirt pocket. What was her name?
He was described as a generous man who just kind of kept to himself.
Investigators zero in on a well-known troublemaker with family ties.
He was a loose cannon. The reason why we're here, you got a warrant for your arrest, okay? All right.
He was always getting into trouble with the law.
Have you ever seen a big toolbox around the property?
Yeah, there was 55.
But the investigation will ultimately expose an unimaginable betrayal even closer to home.
His health was declining.
He would help him clean and cook.
She was supposed to be taking care of him.
I know. It looks so delicious and just horrible.
You think you kind of snapped that thing a little bit?
No, I swear that thing's so good.
Fort Sumner, New Mexico is a high desert town with deep western roots.
It's where actually Billy the Kid supposedly is buried. It's a town for about maybe 1,000 people. Small, tight-knit community. Pretty much nothing to do over there unless it's family-oriented.
On the evening of October 15th, 2020, Chad Abeda, his father Louis, and Chad's young son are poking around a makeshift dump site behind their rental home.
Only a handful of individuals had access to that trash pit. This town's so little we didn't have direct access to a dump all the time, so we kind of had to make do with what we had.
They observed a toolbox or tool chest that looked really nice. This type of tool chest normally goes behind a pickup truck.
They were like, oh wow, it's a pretty nice toolbox. I mean, I could have use for this.
When Chad moves to lift the toolbox, it won't budge.
It was so heavy that he couldn't pull it out himself. So they ended up getting some straps and they pulled it out together.
When they opened it up, there was blankets in there. When they were taking the blankets off, that's when they saw the skull. They're all like, man, back up. We're dealing with something else here. Let's call 911.
The Debaca County Sheriff's Department arrives, followed quickly by New Mexico State Police.
Based off the decomposition of the body, it looks like the individual in the toolbox had been deceased for a while.
Based on the facial hair, the clothing, it appeared to be a male. The skeleton remains had duct tape wrapped around its mouth. It also had duct tape wrapped around its wrists.
As soon as I saw the tape, I knew at that point in time, we're done with the homicide.
The medical examiner is called to the scene to collect the remains.
There wasn't any identification on him except there was a medical card.
The pathologist was able to retrieve a small business card for a doctor's office with an appointment inside his shirt pocket with the name A.J. Harding. The toolbox with the body inside was then transported to the office of medical examiner. We did not have a 100% confirmation, but we had a name. So we're trying to find out who is A.J. Harding.
Born April 2nd, 1938, A.J. Harding grew up in Fort Sumner. After a stint in the Navy, he married the love of his life, Virginia.
It was your classic 1960s American marriage. They would take good care of each other. It was very loving. AJ worked in the lumber industry, cutting branches. And after that, he was a truck driver and he worked across the country. They moved back to Wellington, Texas, where Virginia's family is from. They had 3 children, Shane, Tommy, and Candy. Tragically, Shane passed away in his childhood. In the early 2000s, they moved back to Fort Sumner, New Mexico. Once they lived in Fort Sumner, they started a hamburger stand. AJ, Virginia, and Candy Sr. all helped with the hamburger stand.
Eventually, their children grew up and started families of their own. In 1982, their youngest daughter, Candy, welcomed a son, Aaron, followed by a daughter, Candy Jo.
Virginia and AJ were thrilled to be grandparents. They loved having their family around them, and Virginia loved having everybody there in her home for every holiday.
But Candy struggled with motherhood.
Candy Sr. tried to maintain the relationship with Aaron, Candy Jo's father. That didn't work out. He was not involved whatsoever.
In the 90s, Candy started to also struggle with addiction.
Candy Sr. had some demons, and she really truly didn't know what a healthy relationship was. Aaron was 8 years older than Candy. Joe, he pretty much grew up with his grandparents, AJ and Virginia. Candy lived with her mother off and on throughout her younger years. And when she wasn't living with her mother, AJ and Virginia provided a roof over their head.
Candy Joe flourished under the care of her grandparents.
She was the shining star of the family. Candy Joe, she wanted to play volleyball in college. She wanted to get a degree.
Aaron, on the other hand, battled his own demons, and he soon left his grandparents' home.
Aaron always kind of been the wild one.
Aaron was always getting into trouble with the law. He had been caught breaking and entering, and it was always a worry to Candy. She never fully trusted him.
As Aaron slipped away, Candy Joe's mother entered recovery and came back into her life.
Candy Sr. was very proud of Candy Joe. She was that bull for her eyes. She could do no wrong. In those preteen and teen years, Candy Joe and Candy Sr. started developing a relationship, a better relationship than they had when she was a child.
In 2012, Candy Joe graduated from high school. With her family's support behind her, she was poised for success.
She had a full ride to the University of the Southwest to play volleyball. She was probably the first family member to go to college.
But in the middle of her freshman year, Candy Joe's world came crashing down when her mother passed away from a sudden illness. She took a break from school and returned to her grandparents' home on Lake Fort Sumner.
Despite her doing all these correct things and following through, life kept taking things away from her.
Back in Fort Sumner, Candy Joe caught the eye of 27-year-old Sean Perkins.
We met at a rodeo there in Fort Sumner. But we kind of developed a relationship through our life goals. We didn't know our place in life quite yet, and we kind of strived to figure that out with each other. AJ and Virginia are very kind and generous. They welcomed me like family. Once me and Candy Joe started dating, it wasn't too long before we moved in with each other. And Kenny and I learned that we're having a child kind of unexpectedly, and we let family know. And AJ and Virginia were very excited. So were my parents.
But what should have been a joyous time soon turned tragic in the spring of 2016.
Age started creeping up on AJ, and Virginia had Crohn's disease, and she was a little iller. After Candy got pregnant, shortly after, Ginger passed. Her grandmother was the sole person in the family. AJ was heartbroken, but he was very spiritual, and that he knew this wasn't going to be the last that he's going to see her.
Another blow came following the birth of Candy Joe's daughter in 2016, when AJ was diagnosed with cancer.
Candy Joe would spend the majority of her time taking care of our daughter and her grandfather.
Eventually, the pressure proved to be too much for the couple.
Candy started pushing us away. She shifted into the party crowd. It felt like her interest wasn't being a mom anymore at the time. And the void between us just grew and grew.
By 2019, the relationship was beyond repair.
I packed up both me and my daughter. I thought it would be in the best interest for me to get custody due to me being the stable one. She agreed.
Sean and his mother moved in together a couple of towns over from Fort Sumner, while Candy Joe returned to the home of her grandfather.
She did mention his health and how it was declining, and Candy didn't know how much longer she was going to have with him.
She would help him clean, cook. AJ was very, very happy that she was there.
But on October 15th, 2020, it appears AJ's end has come sooner than expected when his potential remains are found in a trash pit. Given that the body had likely been there for weeks, the chances of finding anything useful are slim.
When you're doing a crime scene, you never really know what is exactly important, so you're taking pictures of everything and you're looking at everything.
We did see a trailer there, and on that trailer it had a flat tire. We didn't know whether this has something to do with the investigation or it doesn't. We thought, was this the trailer that was used to haul out the tool chest? From the minute that we saw the trailer, it just looked like anything else. But at the same time, it was still out of place for us.
Investigators turned to the family of Chad Abeda, the man who found the body and lives on the property. While Chad did not witness the trailer's arrival, he says his son did.
Weeks ago, he had observed a white pickup truck all in a trailer, and they left the trailer there. He was unsure of whoever was driving the white pickup truck.
The trash pit was accessible to anyone that knew it was back there, but it was not visible from the road.
One of the questions that I asked Abeda is, did everybody have access to this mini landfill slash pit? And their answer was, if they do have access, they have to get permission from the homeowner.
The boy's mother chimes in. She tells investigators there is one name that comes to mind. Aaron Hardin.
She told us that the owner of the residence would allow Aaron Hardin to go there and be a handyman per se, clean the property up and allowing him access to the pit at any time.
After learning about Aaron Hardin, Michael talked to one of the deputies who was still on scene and asked him who is Aaron Hardin. Turns out that Aaron Hardin is, he's a local. He does have his run-in with law enforcement every now and then. And that's when he told me AJ Hardin was Aaron's grandpa.
Coming up, the search for Aaron Hardin proves difficult.
Did he decide to take off? Was he fleeing from us?
And in an unexpected twist, is AJ Hardin actually alive?
We were completely shocked. Was that AJ inside the tool chest, or was he in a retirement home?
After finding a toolbox containing human remains in a makeshift dump site, New Mexico authorities believe they may belong to 83-year-old AJ Hardin.
In the front pocket of the shirt was a doctor's card. It said next day appointment with the name of AJ Hardin.
Investigators learned that AJ's 38-year-old grandson, Aaron Hardin, is known to use the trash pit.
Aaron Hardin had dumped trash there previously. He did chores there.
Is he the one that placed the trailer out there? Is he the one that took the tool chest out there? That was a lead.
After locating Aaron's last known address, investigators head to his home.
We met with a man who was the owner of the residence who lived with Aaron. We told him that we were looking for Aaron, and he told us that he wasn't there, that he was currently in Arizona.
Did he decide to take off? Was he fleeing from us?
In the midst of trying to track Aaron down, they get an update from the autopsy.
They could not determine the cause of death due to the fact that the body was so deteriorated.
However, the ME is closer to confirming the victim's identity.
The doctor did observe a hip replacement. His hip replacement had a serial number on it.
While awaiting confirmation from medical records, investigators work off the assumption that AJ Hardin is the victim.
We decided just to hold that information so we don't jeopardize the integrity of the investigation.
After the autopsy, they reach out to the owner of the rental property where the body was found.
The residence was actually owned by a lady named Brenda Moyer, but she was renting it out to the Abetas. And so investigators went to speak with her.
I asked Brenda, who's AJ Hardin? And she said that AJ Hardin was a very nice man. He's an older man. He's the grandpa to Candy Joe Webb and Aaron Hardin. Brenda Moyer described Aaron to be a very nice guy. He helps her out around the house. He helps her throw out trash into that pit.
And that's not the only connection she makes for detectives.
Her son, Sean Perkins, had a daughter with Candy Joe Webb.
Investigators ask to speak with Sean. Sean tells detectives that he and Candy Joe used to live in the home where the body was found, and that Aaron often used the dump.
We all kind of viewed Aaron, he was a loose cannon, if you will. It wasn't unusual for him to be gone for a period of time.
When they ask Sean about AJ, he says that he and Candy Joe had a very special relationship.
AJ unconditionally loved her, and he was very happy that he was around his great-granddaughter.
Sean reveals that a couple of months prior, in late August, Candy Joe made a difficult decision regarding her grandfather's care.
Candy texted me, asking me would it be a bad idea for my papa or AJ to go to a home. I told her that it's between you and him. So I texted her one day, I asked her, did you send AJ to a home? And she told me, yes, I did.
We were completely shocked. Was that AJ inside the tool chest, or was he in a retirement home? Where is he? At that point, we wanted to interview Candy.
Investigators place a call to Candy Joe on the spot. She agrees to meet them at Brenda's and arrives shortly after.
Okay, so do you kind of know why we're here today, or?
What they told me was a body was found.
We asked her if she knew who the person that was found inside that toolbox was. She told us she did not.
Do you have any idea who would want to drop the body off of there or anything like that?
I remember the renter saying that my brother had went out there like 2 or 3 weeks ago and threw stuff in the pit and didn't tell Brenda.
When asked about her brother Aaron, she talks about how he is always in trouble. She doesn't directly say that he's involved with it, but she definitely insinuates that.
Candy Joe says that she tried to keep her distance from Aaron, but he continued to come around the lake house.
It used to be my grandpa's house. The deed is in my name now. It has been for years. I had a no trespass order against him.
The reason that she said she did the no trespass order is they just weren't getting along and she didn't want him around the property or her daughter.
She was worried about him taking advantage of AJ and maybe even her.
Detectives ask Candy Joe about her grandfather.
Where's AJ at?
I'm in hospice care. I didn't talk to him about him a lot.
She stated that she had placed AJ Hardin in a retirement facility just outside Wellington, Texas.
Candy Joe says the facility is about 6 hours away, but she can't recall the name.
No. You can always get it for us, right?
So the fact that she doesn't remember where she dropped them off, big red flag. Big red flag.
As they wait for Candy Joe to find the name of the nursing home, investigators look into the no trespass order she took out on Aaron.
She was very protective of AJ. He was that parental figure that she never really got.
They find body cam footage from multiple visits to the lake house in the months prior, including an arrest over the summer for an unrelated charge.
He was there to serve a simple misdemeanor arrest warrant. He knocked on the door. Someone opened the door and ended up being Mr. A.J. Hardin. We learned that Aaron was still living there at that time.
The dogs don't bite me? Are you sure?
here? Come on in. I gotta talk to you right quick.
Aaron came to the door.
How you doing, man? What's up?
He was extremely cooperative.
So, the reason why we're here, we got a warrant for your arrest, okay? All right. We have to take you in.
During the course of arresting Aaron, Lieutenant Ghana asked AJ how he was doing, and AJ disclosed that he was doing good.
We know for a fact in the summer of 2020 that AJ was alive, and so that was extremely important.
The footage also provides proof that Aaron and AJ appear to get along.
$20.
When he was picked up on the arrest warrant, his grandpa even gave him some money before he left.
On August 21st, Candy Joe took out the no trespass order. But records show that in the following weeks, Aaron continued to show up at AJ's lake house where he was met by police.
Follow you there. Started.
He was trying to make contact with his grandfather.
Well, me and my sister don't, I'm not allowed out here no more. I haven't been able to get a hold of my granddad, and that's what I'm after.
In an attempt to mediate, the officer places a call to Candy Joe, but she doesn't back down.
Don't get pissed off. She goes, well, he has his telephone number. He can call him when he's getting ready to call him. That's all she would tell me.
She was a bitch, huh?
When AJ kind of got diagnosed with cancer and it was apparent that the end is coming, he treated his house over to Candy Joe because she was kind of the one family member that was probably the most stable.
We were still trying to make contact with Aaron. We know that Candy doesn't want nobody to have access to AJ Harden, and we're still trying to find out the reason why. At this point, both of them are person of interest.
Coming up, an unexpected twist.
I could not find a retirement home in Texas called Shady Oaks anywhere. Her story's all over the place.
A potential suspect hands over a lead.
That toolbox was at your grandpa's house? Correct.
New Mexico authorities have located human remains in a remote trash pit. While they suspect they belong to 83-year-old AJ Harden, his granddaughter claimed that AJ was safe and sound.
Candy Joe explained to detectives that she had taken her grandfather to a facility in Texas.
As authorities anticipate a call from Candy Joe with the name of the facility, they also await word from the medical examiner for the body's official ID. Meanwhile, Aaron Harden is unaccounted for.
Investigators know that there's one person they still need to talk to, and that's Aaron. But first, they still needed to confirm whose body was in the toolbox.
Eager for answers, investigators reach back out to Candy Joe on October 20th.
Hey, I was just calling about that information that we were requesting.
Yes, apparently one of my grandmother's sisters, his sister-in-law, took it upon themselves to check him out of the retirement facility, and now I'm not able to locate my grandpa.
So do you recall what the name was?
Hold on. It is called, I have it written down right here. Find it. Shady Oaks Retirement Estate.
Immediately after hanging out with Candy, I looked up Shady Oaks, could not find the Shady Oaks anywhere. So again, that was another red flag for us. At this point, Candy Webb's looking like our suspect.
With this new discovery, suspicions around Candy Joe are mounting by the second. Then, on October 21st, 6 days into the investigation, officials receive much-awaited news regarding the remains.
We received a call from
the Office of Medical Examiner in Albuquerque.
They were able to identify him through a serial number from a hip replacement, and they 100% confirmed it was A.J. Harden.
Her story just completely deteriorated and fell apart.
Investigators keep the identification to themselves, but use it to obtain a search warrant for the lake house where AJ was last known to live with Candy Joe.
Police search warrant!
Clear.
The search turns up no new evidence, but does inspire another phone call from Candy Joe.
Agent Villarreal received a telephone call from Candy Webb. She was inquiring why there was a search warrant.
You think you can meet us up at the state police building so we can talk about it?
Is it okay if I get in contact with my lawyer and just to have them there with me?
That's fine.
With Candy Joe lawyered up, investigators begin reaching out to those close to her.
Sean told us that Candy Joe Webb had a new relationship, a new boyfriend by the name of Garrett Bean.
She didn't want to come in without an attorney to speak. So on the same day, we decided that we were going to locate Garrett Bean.
On October 22nd, detectives arrive at the Bean residence.
How you doing, brother? What's your name again?
Garrett Bean.
So you kind of say you know why we're here?
Well, that's what I was hoping you guys would tell me more about it, because I'm kind of in the gray on this.
They ask him about AJ, but his response is unexpected.
Where's your grandpa? Her grandpa?
Yeah.
He passed.
How do you know he passed?
She had told me.
Candy Webb had told him that Agent Harden had died in his sleep a couple months back.
Okay, apparently she has been lying to you. We disclosed AJ Harden did pass away, but it's not the way Candy Webb told him he passed away. AJ Harden's dead in that tool chest.
I realized this was a lot more serious than I could have imagined, and I felt dumb at that point. I was just very blindsided.
Thank you.
Following the interview, investigators release confirmation of AJ's death to the public, and the news reverberates through the small town.
Both me and my mother were in disbelief of it all. We didn't understand what was going on.
The news does prompt an unexpected phone call.
Aaron Harden finally contacts me. Aaron said he was currently in Arizona. So, I'm pretty sure you know what's going on.
I don't know. This is what I know.
Okay.
That my granddad is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's passed away.
He learned that it was possibly his grandfather. I did tell him, yes, it's true. Did you have any issues with your granddad?
Me and him, we were on good terms. That's the terms we've always been on. We've never had no problems.
He tells investigators that the real reason Candy Joe had the no trespass order issued was because he'd confronted her about stealing from AJ.
They learned that Aaron and AJ shared a bank account. The day that Aaron received a no trespass notice, he had discovered that Candy Joe Webb had been writing hot checks using the joint account that he shared with his grandfather.
Costed me about $1,500 or $1,400 worth of hot checks.
Aaron says Candy Joe obtained the no trespass order so he couldn't tell AJ. But investigators now wonder if it was because AJ was already dead.
Have you ever seen a big toolbox around the property?
It was in the shop. It's mine.
Toolbox? Was that your grandpa's house?
First, the last time I seen it, it was in the middle shed in above the backyard.
Okay. When we executed the search on the residence days prior, we didn't see a tool chest there. So we were fairly confident that we at least established the origin of where the tool chest came from. We just felt like Aaron Harden was not involved. Just based on his interview, based on the way he was explaining the love for his grandpa, how detailed he was.
There's just more evidence piling up that this was Candy Joe Webb who killed her grandfather.
coming up. A concerned source comes forward with a shocking new claim.
She told me that he had asked her to do it.
With her back against a wall, will Candy Joe tell the truth?
How does she say that? And that's what I like this, and I gave it to her, but it wasn't. I didn't like it.
8 days after discovering the remains of A.J. Harden, detectives have zeroed in on his granddaughter, Candy Jo Webb, as their main suspect. The day after his first interview, Candy Jo's boyfriend, Garrett Bean, contacts investigators again.
Gary wanted to give another interview with us to establish that he wasn't involved.
Garrett and his attorney meet with investigators on October 26th. Garrett says that following his first interview with police, he met with Candy Jo at a local hotel.
You know, at that point, I didn't know what to believe, what was true or what wasn't. You know, now I'm hearing a whole nother thing.
According to Garrett, Candy Jo said that AJ had requested her help in ending his life.
She told me that he had asked her to do it. She'd given him Xanax and Ambien, and he had passed in his sleep.
At that point, she ended up putting him in a tool chest and getting rid of him.
Not only did Candy Jo tell him that she drugged AJ, Garrett now believes Candy Jo called him in late August as she was disposing of the body.
While she was, you know, disposing of trash, she had FaceTimed me because the tire had blown out on the trailer. I had told her, wait for me, you know, I'll help you. But she was very adamant about just getting it done right then.
Once Garrett told us that now we knew that she used that trailer to haul the tool chest with AJ's human remains in there to dump it out.
Investigators believe Garrett.
Coming forward with the information that he had, at that point we felt like he wasn't involved. He was part of Candy Webb's lies like everybody else was, and we cleared him.
With Garrett's statement, authorities have what they need.
We are now confident that Candy did murder AJ, therefore we set on an arrest warrant for her on October 28th.
But when they attempt to serve it, Candy Jo is nowhere to be found.
Candy was no longer in the area. At that time, Sergeant Hernandez reached out to the U.S. Marshals for assistance.
Investigators seize phone and financial records to reconstruct Candy Jo's movements.
I was able to get a search warrant for her cell phone and started pinging in different places in Brownsville, Texas. From then, she went to McAllen, Texas, where she sold her grandfather's truck. We saw she was using a prepaid debit card at the time, and she bought a Greyhound ticket to go to Jacksonville, Florida.
For 7 days, authorities stay one step behind until she arrives in Jacksonville. Through her credit card charges, U.S. Marshals pinpoint the location where Candy has decided to hole up.
That radius is around the local criminal element hotel. Is she gonna be somewhere in that hotel?
On November 5th, 2020, less than a month after the discovery of her grandfather's body, U.S. Marshals make their move.
Candy Webb is coming out of one of those hotel rooms. So they follow her to a nearby convenience store gas station and they arrest her. The deputy marshal that arrested her told me that she didn't even ask a single question. She was already expecting it.
On December 1st, 2020, officers Hernandez and Villarreal interview Candy Jo in the Debaca County Adult Detention Center.
What did it happen? What did you have to happen?
It was an accident. Everything afterwards, that's f***ed up what I did, but it is an accident.
Instead of passing AJ's death off as a mercy killing, Candy Joe now says it was an accident.
Okay. He said his back was hurting. Had a Xanax and also relaxers, and I gave them to him, but it wasn't. I didn't drug him, and I didn't give it that many. Did you give him more? I don't know. When I came back, he wasn't.
He was afraid.
No.
When I asked Candy why did she tape AJ's mouth and wrists, she told me because she didn't want to look at his face when she was moving him. And taping his hands was the easiest way to move AJ.
But investigators aren't buying it.
Hey, your mind that made you think you kind of snapped that thing off?
No, I snapped. I've been so good. That's what she snapped.
It's just too many lies from the start of the investigation.
He didn't really do it. And I know it looks so delicious and just horrible. And my papa, I didn't die. Was I relieved?
Coming up, Candy Joe hasn't run out of tricks.
They want to do an insanity defense.
The callous truth comes out.
He might have still been breathing, and she probably suffocated at the time.
The arrest of 27-year-old Candy Jo Webb for the murder of her grandfather, A.J. Hardin, sent a jolt through the tiny town of Fort Sumner, New Mexico.
We didn't know where she was, what she was going to do, how she could act. So when she was caught, there was somewhat of a feeling of closure.
Sean is in for another shock. 3 days after the arrest, he gets a letter from Candy Jo.
The letter stated that she didn't feel empathy for anyone, that she is just a psychopath, and that I need to protect my daughter from people like her.
He turns the letter over to investigators. Prosecutors believe it's a ploy.
Often you will see defendants do this because they're trying to set themselves up for the ability to have a defense of insanity.
Confirming their suspicions, Candy Jo's attorneys request a psychological evaluation.
They want to get her evaluated, and we were too close to trial, and they hadn't followed the rules, in my opinion, and I argued against it, and the judge agreed with me and said, no, we are going to trial.
As they prepare for trial, prosecutors work with investigators to formulate what they believe happened when AJ was murdered. They determine that no one had seen AJ since Candy filed the no trespass order against Aaron on August 21st.
The timeline that we built was more or less that August 21st weekend is where she probably killed him. Ultimately, she did drug him to the point where he passed out.
She told us she was covering his mouth with duct tape. He might have still been breathing, and she probably suffocated at the time.
At that point, she needed to get the body out of the residence. So at that point, she ended up taping up AJ's hands, and she put him inside the tool chest, placed it on the trailer, and days later drove him out there and threw him in that pit.
Tired of caring for her ailing grandfather, Candy Jo was looking for a fresh start. She hoped to get that by selling the lake house.
Candy was talking to realtors to try and put the house on the market.
I think it was purposely done for monetary gain because she has a new boyfriend. They're gonna have a bank full of money, Agent Harden's money.
I always thought that was a very sad deal. She was supposed to be taking care of him, yet she just got tired of him. I was planning on going to trial, first-degree murder, but about a week before, they approached me about taking a second-degree plea, and when I talked to the family members that were left, they didn't want her to go to jail at all. My understanding was she convinced them that this was an accident, and they really believed her. So, after talking with the family, and due to the fact that the body was so deteriorated, there was no way to determine whether it was an accident or whether it was intentional. So, because of those facts, I decided to go ahead and accept the plea.
On July 27th, 2022, Candy Jo pleads guilty to second-degree murder, fraud, and tampering with evidence.
So out of the 21 years possible, she received 18 of those.
With good time, she may be out in 12 years. I don't feel that 12 years would be enough for someone that did something so atrocious.
While the small town of Fort Sumner still reels from Candy Jo's cold-hearted actions, AJ's memory remains alive.
AJ was a good, kind-hearted man that experienced 10 lives in his one lifetime. He deserved more than what he got. He's lost children, he's lost his wife, he's lost friends, but he maintained a happy and spiritual demeanor, as well as being a great-grandfather to my daughter.
comes around, we need to keep it together. Forever gonna stay together, 'cause it never mattered. Every time you fall in love, you never get enough, you never getting round it. I gotta say this girl can get it again. We live in now, this makes all sense when you get to say that you will be there. Closer, real closer to your heart. You better get to know me, hey, get to know me. Every time you fall in love, you never get enough, you never get around it. I gotta say this girl can get it again. Waking up too early in the falling rain, but now it feels like every time I go to you, I am full. Of danger, every time you fall in love, you never get enough, you never getting round it. I gotta say this girl can get it again. It kept me staring, so I pulled back a little. My head started spinning. What goes around comes around. We need to keep it together. Forever gonna stay together, 'cause it never mattered. Every time you fall in love, you never get enough, you never getting round it. I gotta say this girl can get